Christmas dinner is canceled. Weather's getting bad. Everyone's staying home. I read Mom's text while standing beside my car with my arms full of wrapped presents. 2 dishes she'd specifically asked me to make were already strapped into the passenger seat. I looked toward the street. Snow was falling, but cars were still moving. "Is it really that bad?" I texted. Mom replied almost immediately. "Your dad already talked to Melissa and everyone else. Nobody's risking it. Stay home, Natasha." Then another message appeared. "Nobody is getting together without you." That sentence was what convinced me. I carried everything back upstairs, put the food in my refrigerator, and stacked the presents beside my couch. I'd spent weeks preparing for that dinner. I'd sent Mom $620 toward groceries and catering, bought gifts for everyone, rearranged my work schedule, and spent half the afternoon cooking. But apparently Christmas was canceled. So at 31 years old, I spent Christmas Eve alone. I tried not to make it bigger than it was. That was something I'd gotten very good at in my family. Melissa, my 27-year-old sister, had always needed more help, more patience, more second chances. I was the dependable one. If Mom needed money collected for something, she called me. If plans changed, I adjusted. If Melissa created a problem, I was expected to understand. Keeping the peace had become almost automatic. Around 9 that night, I walked to my window. The snowfall had nearly stopped. For a second, I considered calling Mom. Then I thought, what's the point? Everyone's home anyway. I changed into pajamas and started scrolling on my phone. That was when I saw a story posted by one of Melissa's husband's cousins. There were people laughing around a dining table. Christmas music played in the background. I almost scrolled past it. Then I recognized the room. Melissa's living room. I sat upright. I replayed the story. There, hanging beside the front door, were Mom's red winter coat and Dad's gray one. I tapped to the next picture. Dad was carving a turkey. My cousin Rachel was sitting at the table. My aunt was holding a glass of wine. People who were supposedly staying home were all standing inside my sister's house. Then my phone refreshed. Melissa had posted a group photograph. Nearly everyone was squeezed together beneath her Christmas tree. The caption read, "Perfect holiday, red heart Christmas tree." I stared at the picture, counting faces. Mom, Dad, Rachel, my aunt, Melissa's in-laws. Almost everybody. Everybody except me. Then something in the foreground caught my attention. I zoomed in. Sitting in the middle of Melissa's table was the expensive Christmas dessert I had paid for. My mother hadn't canceled Christmas. They had simply canceled me asterisk. And suddenly, there was only one question I needed answered. Why had Mom gone to so much trouble to make sure I believed nobody was celebrating? I didn't call Mom. Not yet. My first instinct was to demand an explanation, but something stopped me. If they had gone through the trouble of inventing a fake weather cancellation, I wanted to know exactly what had happened before anyone had time to rewrite the story. So I took screenshots. Melissa, perfect holiday post. Dad carving the turkey. Mom's coat by the door. The dessert I'd helped pay for. Then I called my cousin Rachel. She answered quietly, "Hey, Natasha." "Rachel, when did Mom tell everyone Christmas was moved to Melissa's house?" There was a pause. "Moved?" "Yes." Another silence. Then Rachel said, "Wait, you didn't know." My stomach tightened. "No." Her voice changed immediately. "Oh, God." "Rachel, when?" "This morning. We got Melissa's address in the family group." I looked at Mom's cancellation message. She had sent it hours later. So everyone knew, before Mom told me Christmas was canceled. Rachel hesitated. "Yes." That answer destroyed the last possibility, that this had been some spontaneous change of plans. Then Rachel added, "Your mom said not to bother you about it." "Why?" "She said you needed space this year." I actually laughed once, but there was nothing funny about it. I needed space. That's what she told us. Suddenly, I remembered a conversation from 3 days earlier. Mom had called asking whether I could give Melissa $8,400 for what she described as temporary household expenses. I'd refused. Melissa had recently financed expensive new furniture and booked a weekend getaway while repeatedly asking Mom and Dad for help. I wasn't going to finance another emergency created by choices nobody wanted to question. Mom hadn't taken my answer well. "Someday," she'd said coldly, "you'll understand what family loyalty means." At the time, I thought she was angry. Now I wondered if she'd been warning me. I ended my call with Rachel and opened Mom's messages. I attached one screenshot, the picture of everyone smiling beneath Melissa's Christmas tree. Then I typed, "Mom, explain this." Delivered. Read. Nothing. 1 minute passed. Then 2. Still nothing. I reopened Melissa's profile. One Christmas photograph was gone. I refreshed. Another disappeared. Then another. Mom wasn't explaining the lie. Someone was deleting the evidence. Christmas morning, I woke up to another photograph. Melissa had apparently forgotten that not every picture from the night before had been deleted. There she was beside Mom and Dad, surrounded by relatives, smiling like nothing unusual had happened. The comments underneath were worse. "Beautiful family. Looks like an amazing Christmas. Wish we could have been there." Then my phone buzzed. It was Aunt Carol. "We missed you last night. Your mom said you decided not to come. Hope everything's okay." I read that message twice. So Mom hadn't only lied to me. She had lied about me. I replied, "I didn't decide not to come." Then I sent her the screenshot. Mom's exact words were right there. "Christmas dinner is canceled. Weather's getting bad. Everyone's staying home." Aunt Carol called immediately. "Natasha, what is this?" "The message Mom sent me yesterday." "But Diane told us you wanted to stay home." "I know." That was the moment I stopped protecting Mom from the consequences of her own story. I didn't post anything publicly. I didn't need to. Aunt Carol spoke to Rachel. Rachel already knew what had happened. Within an hour, questions started appearing in the family group chat. Rachel finally wrote, "Diane, why did you tell Natasha dinner was canceled when you gave the rest of us Melissa's address that morning?" Mom responded quickly, "This is being blown completely out of proportion. It was a family misunderstanding." Melissa jumped in. "Seriously, Natasha, you're ruining Christmas over one dinner." I stared at the screen. Then I typed, "This isn't about missing dinner. You lied so I wouldn't come, then told everyone I chose not to come. Those are two different lies." No response from Melissa. Mom started typing. Stopped. Started again. Then a notification appeared. Diane Bennett left the group. For years, I would have panicked at that. I would have called her, apologized for embarrassing her, and somehow ended up fixing a situation I hadn't created. Not this time. I opened my banking app. Every month, I sent Mom and Dad money toward various shared family expenses because there was always something they supposedly needed help covering. I found the automatic transfer. My thumb hovered over the screen. Then I pressed *cancel****. No more automatic payments. If anyone wanted my money again, I would know exactly where it was going first. Less than 10 minutes later, Melissa sent me a private message. "You have no idea what you just did." The next morning, December 26, I woke up and reached for my phone. 6 missed calls. 3 from Mom. 2 from Dad. 1 from Melissa. The same people who had ignored me after I discovered their Christmas lie, suddenly couldn't stop calling. Mom had left a message. "Natasha, call me as soon as you wake up. This is important." Dad's voicemail was even shorter. "There's a financial situation. We need to talk today." Financial. I sat up immediately. Then I remembered the $8,400 Mom had asked me for 3 days before Christmas. I opened our old messages and reread them carefully. She had never called the money a gift. She kept saying Melissa needed it before Christmas. That wording hadn't seemed important before. Now it did. I called Rachel first and told her what was happening. After everything I'd learned, I wasn't willing to have another private conversation that could later be twisted. "Stay on speaker with me," I said. Then I called Mom. She answered before the first ring had finished. "Natasha, thank God." "What happened?" "We need to straighten something out." "What?" Dad spoke somewhere behind her. "Diane, just tell her." Mom exhaled. "Melissa is behind on her mortgage." I looked at Rachel. "How far behind?" "It doesn't matter right now." "It matters if you're calling me for money." Another pause. Then Mom admitted Dad had helped arrange temporary protection for Melissa using an account Mom controlled. That morning, money had been pulled from Mom's account under the arrangement. Enough to leave my parents with an immediate cash problem. Mom lowered her voice. "If you could just transfer the money we discussed, we can straighten everything out." There it was. The family that had deliberately celebrated Christmas without me now needed me less than 24 hours later. "How much?" "You already know." "Say it." Mom hesitated. "About $8,400. Rachel's eyes widened. I leaned closer to the phone. "Why is the amount you need almost exactly the amount you asked me to give Melissa before Christmas?" Silence. Not even Mom tried to fill it. Then Melissa's voice suddenly came through the speaker. "Mom, stop. Melissa. Just tell her why you didn't invite her." Nobody spoke. And in that silence, the pieces finally connected. The money. Mom's warning about family loyalty. The fake weather cancellation. Christmas at Melissa's house. This had never been two separate problems. Then Dad's voice cut sharply through the call. "Diane, she deserves to know what you told us." Mom went quiet. Dad spoke first. "Tell her, Diane." Mom sighed. "Fine. After you refused to help Melissa, I was angry. Angry enough to lie about Christmas. You had the money, Natasha." That answer told me almost everything. Mom exp. Ain't that after I refused the $8,400, Melissa suggested hosting Christmas at her house instead. Mom agreed. Then she made another decision. "I wouldn't be told." "I thought you needed to understand that family has consequences," Mom said. Rachel, still sitting beside me, stared at the phone. "What consequences?" Mom hesitated. "The consequences of turning your back on family." There it was. The truth. Mom had told everyone else that I needed space. She sent them Melissa's address that morning. Hours later, she texted me claiming dangerous weather had canceled dinner. When relatives asked where I was, she told them I had chosen not to attend. The weather had simply been an excuse. And if Melissa's husband's cousin hadn't posted that first story, followed by Melissa's careless, perfect holiday photograph, I might never have known. I kept my voice level. "So you excluded me from Christmas because I wouldn't give Melissa money, and now you're calling because you need that same money." Mom didn't answer. "Diane," Dad said. I heard her. "No, answer her." Still nothing. Then Dad said quietly, "Natasha, I'm sorry." I closed my eyes. "I knew your mother didn't want you there," he continued. "I didn't agree with how she handled it, but I didn't want another argument." "You knew?" "Yes." "And you went anyway." Another pause. Yes. That hurt differently. You didn't avoid the argument, Dad. You made a choice. You just made the choice that was easiest for you. He had nothing to say to that. Melissa did. This is ridiculous. Natasha, you can afford the $8,400. I almost couldn't believe she said it. Maybe I can. Then why are you doing this? Because being able to pay your bill doesn't make it my bill. Melissa started talking over me, but I stopped her. No, you wanted me excluded because I wouldn't rescue you financially. You got what you wanted. You had your Christmas without me. Now you handle your mortgage without me too. Mom's voice hardened. So you're really going to leave your sister in this situation? No, Melissa is already in this situation. I'm choosing not to finance it. I refused the transfer. That decision changed everything. Melissa and her husband had to contact their lender themselves and negotiate a repayment arrangement. The expensive lifestyle they'd been protecting suddenly became impossible to maintain. They canceled unnecessary expenses and sold several recently purchased luxury items. Mom had to absorb the financial consequences of the guarantee she had voluntarily made instead of transferring those consequences to me. But she wasn't finished trying to control the story. Within days, I learned she was telling relatives that I had abandoned the family during a financial emergency. This time, I didn't argue. I sent the receipts. Her fake Christmas cancellation. Rachel's confirmation that everyone else had received Melissa's address hours earlier. And Mom's messages asking me for $8,400 before Christmas. I didn't add insults or explanations. The timeline spoke for itself. Relatives who had believed I skipped Christmas now understood that I had been deliberately kept away. Mom lost something she had always relied on, control of the family narrative. I made another change too. The automatic transfer I canceled on Christmas morning stayed canceled. So did every other routine payment I had been making simply because someone told me, family helps family. If I ever helped again, it would be because I chose to. I would know where the money was going, and nobody would buy my cooperation with guilt or threaten me with exclusion. Melissa stopped asking. For the first time, she understood that I was not her emergency fund. My relationship with my parents changed permanently. I kept limited contact with Mom. Whenever she tried to bring up Melissa's finances, I gave her the same answer. We can talk about our relationship. We're not discussing me paying Melissa's bills. Dad began meeting me separately. He never asked me to pretend Christmas hadn't happened. He apologized again and eventually accepted that repairing our relationship required more than telling me to move on. The biggest change, though, was mine. For years, I had mistaken being useful for being loved. I thought if I helped enough, adjusted enough, paid enough, and stayed quiet enough, eventually I would be treated like I mattered as much as everyone else. That Christmas finally showed me the difference. The following year, I spent Christmas with friends and relatives who actually wanted me there. No secret address. No loyalty test. No money attached to the invitation. When I walked through the door, nobody had to convince me that I belonged. The Christmas they lied to keep me away became the last holiday they could ever use to control me.